Broadcasting from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, to around the globe. You're listening to Shark Bite Biz, your exclusive place for business strategy, sales, marketing, and tech in the roaring 20s. And now, here's your host, David Strausser.
It's time again for another episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your host, David Strausser, and this is your place to learn how to grow a business during a global pandemic. I got a great episode in store for today, and we're going to discuss the real estate market, both commercial and residential. First, I got to say, I'm fighting a throat infection, and I don't know if you know this or not, but that's not optimal for a podcast. So the intro and outro today is going to be a tad shorter than normal. Maybe that's a good thing. Hopefully, though, I am back in full force for Monday's episode, stronger than ever. So today we're just going to deal with it, and I'm going to crank this out so that you guys can focus on the interview. Real estate is a weird market right now. Many states have moratoriums on evictions, and you have a ton of people that are not paying rent. I mean, it's probably not even their fault if you think about it. They were laid off. They just can't afford to pay rent. Some cases, you get up to middle income people, unemployment doesn't even cover the cost of their rent. So on top of that, you have many businesses downsizing their offices, and in some cases, they are totally eliminating their offices altogether because they find they're just not needed anymore. They can work more efficiently from home. All they need is a small meeting space, a physical location. They don't need the big, huge office they had before. So who knows what the future actually holds for the real estate market? But today's guest is able to give you some insight into what's going to happen. Who is today's guest? A good friend of mine from Los Angeles, Blayne Pacelli. My guest, Blayne, is with Rodeo Realty. He has been a real estate agent in Los Angeles for 17 and a half years. Before real estate, he worked in the restaurant industry for about 25 years. He loves helping sellers get the most equity out of their house and buyers getting the best deal possible. So let's just bring Blayne on in here.
Business strategy.
Blayne, buddy, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. So glad to finally have you here. This is like our 10th time trying to record this interview.
I know. You know, things happen during this interview process. So I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to see you. And that shirt, I feel so... I wish I would have had a shirt like that. I mean, you could have sent me one for the interview. It would have been pretty sweet, but I just have a kind of normal black shirt on.
Yeah, I went all out for you, man. I know this is your personality is like all out. I could see you easily wearing something like this.
Oh yeah, no, I'd rock that shirt, man. I would rock it. Where'd you get that?
I think it was from Macy's, if I remember correctly.
Macy's had that?
Yeah,
really?
yeah. It's with, I think it's INC, so I don't know if they call it Inc. or INC, but that's the brand, and it was at Macy's, and it was a Christmas gift 2 years ago.
From who? I got to ask.
From my wife.
Who's got that?
My wife got it for me.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm like, I want a crazy shirt, and she's like, okay, here you go. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. Let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna ask you. 2 years. How many times have you worn that shirt?
Probably about 10. I have a lot of shirts though.
All right. Yeah. Well,
I'm one of those people that I'll buy shirts. They stay in the closet, and I'll have them 15 years later, and I'll still pull them out to wear. So, you know, that 10 times in about 2 years is probably pretty good.
No, that's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no. So anyways, man, obviously, I know who you are. But for all of our listeners and viewers out there, you know, we have the tradition on this channel, always first question's a real softball. What's your background? What's your experience? What makes Blayne Blayne?
Well, I'm a local boy. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, actually born in Santa Monica, grew up in Malibu. You know, for most of my life, I was in the restaurant business. I did that for probably 25 plus years.
Wow.
I graduated hotel restaurant management. That's where I thought I wanted to go, the direction I wanted to go. I wanted to open my own restaurant, like called Bonicelli. A friend of mine, his last name was Bonet. My last name is Pacelli, so we put the last, the two names together, Bonicelli. It didn't work out,
Yeah.
but I did do it. I managed a lot of restaurants. If people from Los Angeles going to know Red Onion. That was a very popular nightclub out here, and it got a little crazy there. It was a bunch of them. It was franchised Southern California, and I worked at a bunch of them. But it was fun, but I just realized after a while it just definitely was not my passion.
How long ago was that?
Really like the
Give us some time frames. You said that you were in restaurant for 25 years. How long has it been since you made that transition?
So I guess 2003.
2003?
That's when I started real estate. I did it for a tiny bit.
How old are you? I'm doing this math in my head.
I am 55 years old, or 55 years young, I should say.
Well, you don't look a day over 54, man.
Thank you. You're a rock star. You dress like a rock star. But yeah, I got into real estate in 2003, so about 17 years into real estate. And I just really, I waited tables for a little bit at the very beginning of 2003, kind of, commingled a little bit both. Did the
you're
real estate,
up.
the restaurant business. Yeah, and
that's interesting. You were in your mid-30s when you made that transformation, and that's something that we've heard a lot of times on this show about people that have done something, for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and then they're just like, I like it, but I'm not really happy doing this. I want something else. Is that how did your transformation come about?
I just knew I couldn't do the restaurant business anymore. It was if I would have to work any more days at a restaurant, I mean, it got so bad. I don't even like stepping foot into restaurants. I rarely go out to eat. I hate restaurants.
The perfect time for an attitude like that, right?
Yes, it is. I feel bad for restaurants right now. I'm so happy that I'm not in that business right now, since so many of them are closed right now. But I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do, and my wife suggested I should go into real estate. One of my best friends was in real estate for 20-something years at the time, and he's like, why don't you try it? And I really loved it. It was pretty awesome. The market at that time was on an upward trajectory.
All the way up till what, 2008?
2008, early 2008. Then it went and until about 2011, and started coming back up again.
You didn't get discouraged at that time period when everything crashed?
I'll be honest, it was tough. It was tough because it was really hard to get a listing because there was so many agents vying for those listings, people in the business for a long time.
Wait,
but if you had a listing, you really had to put a sign
in. Even with foreclosures or, all that. I don't know how that stuff works, but with all the availability
of 2008?
Wasn't that the housing crash, right? 2008, 2009?
Yes. So in 2008, yes, it was a little discouraging, but with everything, I mean, there's ups and downs of the market. And I'll be honest, it was tough. It was tough for a while, but that's when investors really come out and want to buy properties because they want to take advantage of a down market. So there's always people buying properties.
What kept you going?
I felt.
What kept you going instead of you just throwing in the towel and maybe I should go sell something else or restaurants? What made you see it through? I've been playing sports my whole life, and you just have to take what they give you and you push through. And I knew the market was going to rebound. I didn't know how long it was going to take. It took a little bit.
Yeah, it did take a little bit. So, like I said, so in 2008, it just did the nosedive, and 2011 hit rock bottom, and then it slowly started coming back up again. The market right now is better than it was in 2000.
And that's even with a global pandemic.
We surpassed that. Even with the global pandemic. The market's not really going up. It's kind of staying the same, but with the interest rates so freaking good right now, a lot of people are still buying. But yeah, the market is probably the best it's ever been in the history of real
So
estate at this
let's
time.
give a little bit more context to the discussion. Obviously, I think people figured out by now you work in real estate, but who do you work for? How long you've been there? Give us some of those basic details too.
So I work for a company called Rodeo Realty. It is it's a boutique real estate agency, only in the valley. A little bit of a couple stores on the west
And when we're
side,
talking the
but
Valley, we're
mostly,
talking out there in Los Angeles.
sorry, San Fernando
Yeah.
Valley. Which is like Studio City, Sherman Oaks, Encino, so on and so forth. And I specifically, my office is in Studio City, and I've been with Rodeo probably about 9 years now. Started off at Coldwell Banker for a few years, and then drank the Kool-Aid, went to Keller Williams,
Huh?
and then found a home at Rodeo. Our owner's awesome. I love it here, and have my own office,
So
and it's been
with
great.
yeah, I see the office, and yet it is still less cluttered than mine.
Oh, you should see this. If I pan around, you get
Yeah,
scared.
yeah.
And I cleaned it up a little bit, which is even scarier.
Exactly. That's how I feel. But what
Yeah.
has made you? Because obviously, I mean, you're successful at what you do. You're very successful at a real estate agent. I love you personally. I love a lot of the marketing you do with all your videos, stuff like that. Why have you decided to stay with somebody like Rodeo instead of possibly going off, being independent and your own? I mean, what's that looking like in your head?
Oh, being independent and so forth. To be honest, I thought about it. But, a lot of people, especially sellers, truly like that brand behind you. The marketing that brand gives you, and they just feel like if they don't know me and I just meet them and I'm with Pacelli Real Estate, for instance, it just doesn't give the cachet, I guess, as Rodeo,
Who's
who
established?
really is the number one agency in the
You
valley.
know, you
And
just hit on a nugget there. Sorry for interrupting, but you said something that is essentially one of the reasons why I also started this podcast is look, corporations, they're kind of getting a bad rap with just the social climate that we're in right now. But people
yeah,
still want the corporations, whether they're small companies or large enterprises. But what they're looking for most is the individual person that is backed by a corporation. So they're looking at Blayne, the individual, the person who's backed by like a Rodeo. And that's really what gives them the confidence to move forward at this time.
no, I agree with that. And what a big thing about it too is if something goes wrong, let's just say it's just me, and for instance, something goes
You
wrong with
forget
it.
the town the house is haunted.
People, yeah, which I've seen it. But people want to know that they can go somewhere, like they can go to my manager, they can go to the owner, and complain basically, or if there's an issue, there's someone else to do it. But if it's just me, there's nowhere to go really. It's one on one. But I think they feel a little bit safer by knowing that
That's your back.
there's a little
I mean, it's
hierarchy.
the same thing with me at Vision 33. It's like, okay, I'm going out to sell a $500,000 deal. Maybe it's $1 million deal. More than likely, it's probably $500,000 now. But let's just use $500,000. I like big numbers. I've cut from sales, you can tell. But so let's say I'm going out to close a deal. They meet with me on site. I'm on site. They love me, but I mean, business owners, as much as they love me, they still get a little bit nervous. Like, hey, who am I giving this $500,000 check to? And then they're
Exactly.
like, oh, okay, you're with Vision 33. We make the relationship with SAP. Like, hey, you could talk to them. Vision's solid. I'm solid. Everybody loves all of us. And then, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't even give you a check. I'll just wire you the money. That's just that much easier.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's people just like that. It's like a comfort thing, I guess. What's sad is like, a lot of mom and pop places are kind of
Yeah.
disappearing. It's the larger companies that are staying
And that's sad.
together, and it is sad. It really is. I mean, I always try to give my business to the mom and pop places, like
Yeah.
there's only local coffee places, but it just seems like people are
During
drawn
this
towards
during this
the
pandemic, there's
corporations.
been a large transfer of wealth, and it went from mom and pops to large tech companies like Amazon's. And I'm not saying anything bad about
Yeah,
Amazon. I guess you could say they won, but
I have given him many many dollars over the
yeah,
last year,
I
especially
buy
during this
off
pandemic.
Amazon. I get a package almost every day because you can't really get it from mom and pops here anymore, and it's really sad. And because of that, that brings me up to the next point of discussion with you. How is the commercial real estate market looking? I mean, when I look at it from the outside, I see two things. One,
Yeah,
I see what you just said. Mom and pops are closing. Okay, that's has the bump up availability. Number two, I then also see there's companies. Again, we can look at a place like Vision 33, or I have this customer that we're dealing with right now, to where they're like, "Hey, we discovered during the lockdowns that we no longer need an office, so we're downsizing just to basically a conference room." That's available when we need it for people to get together. Other than that, everybody's working from home, and they've terminated their lease. I mean,
yeah.
how is the market? It seems pretty crazy.
I mean, I'm definitely seeing a little bit of uptick in commercial properties, but I'm surprised not as many as I thought there would at this point. But I do think that's going to change, especially the longer this goes. I think there's going to be a lot more commercial properties coming on the market because, like you said, people um, are leaving that commercial space. A lot of even big businesses are losing out. And I know, like, I'm a 24-hour gym member. I think they lost 100 stores on redoing the bankruptcy and so
And
forth.
even
I
with
think
those
Pier
even with
1
those
is
large
losing.
companies, I mean, people got to think, oh wow, so what? Large corporate America loses. They still employed a lot of local people then that are essentially out of jobs too. I mean, you
Yep.
just can't think of the evil giant corporation. You have to remember the impact that they also have, for better or worse, in the local community.
No, I agree. And I mean, you got to think it too as someone who owns the large retail stores, and it's like, let's just say the anchor store leaves.
Yeah.
So that's my they bought that mall to begin with because of that anchor store. They thought, oh, that's a pretty safe company, but now they're gone, and they're gonna have a hard time replacing that anchor store at this time because
Where
a
are you
lot of
gonna?
businesses don't want to all of a sudden
Right.
start uh, putting it in right now because they don't know how long this is going to last. I mean, I know every city's different around the world. I mean, around the United States, but here in Los Angeles, I mean, we're closed. A lot of places are closed. Garcetti doesn't seem to want to open up anytime soon. So I don't know how long this is going to last. And the longer this does keep going, it's really affecting the commercial properties.
Hmm.
So
I think
if you're looking to
California.
buy a
Yeah.
commercial property, I'm
No,
sorry.
sorry, I jumped in, but I was saying, I think one thing different about California is apparently, depending which news station you watch, you can see that there's a mass California exodus. I mean, honestly, we were kind of part of the exodus ourselves, moving from LA to Philly,
Yeah,
but that was due to promotion, not because of leaving California. But even with that, California has some of the brightest minds in the States, a lot of hard workers. And it's kind of like, yeah, people leave, but then there's also another person in line ready to start a new business and
it
fill that
comes here.
void.
But, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people leaving. Uh, this is a time that people like they don't want to be around a bunch of people, so they're looking for small communities around the country to be in. But then there's other people filling that void. So especially in Los Angeles. I mean, this is one of the number one destinations in the nation to be in. Unfortunately, it's one of the most expensive areas
Yes.
to be in, but you still get a lot of people coming here every day. So Los Angeles market is always going to be strong.
Okay.
Always going to
So
be strong.
while we're on the topic of commercial real estate and all that fun stuff, what about Prop 13 out there, California? How is that going to affect it?
Well, so they put on the ballot, or they are putting on the ballot in November, to get rid of Prop 13 for commercial properties. Now that's going to be another issue if somehow that passes and everybody's taxes takes a huge. So
Our
Prop 13
non-California viewers.
Well, it was done. I think it was 78 that it started to keep people's taxes low. So you can only raise your taxes no more than 2% a year. So, like, if your store, let's just say you bought it for $100,000, but it's worth $2 million, depending on when you bought it, you're not paying the taxes based on the $2 million. You're whatever.
It's going up every year, but it's capped at 2%.
Correct. What they want to do is get rid of that, so you're going to have to start paying taxes based on the $2 million that it's worth at this time. So if they say if it passes that it's going to put billions of dollars into someone's pocket. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, if you think
who's going to get that money, where that money's going to go.
The state's probably, well, not probably, they're really down on funds right now because of the ongoing pandemic, and they're looking at ways to refill the coffers, and it sounds like they're looking to do that with Prop 13. But I mean, I don't really want to get into too much of the political side of it, but from a non-political viewpoint, looking at this, it seems like that would be something that would incentivize even more people to leave.
It would, and the problem is if that happens, you're going to see a lot more people fold because the people that own that property can't afford that taxes because they might be making a profit, but not enough to pay for the taxes.
And that's only commercial, right? That's not residential.
So this is the slippery slope because if it starts at the commercial, they're going to end with the residential. Probably next year they're going to put that on the ballot. And the problem is how they put these things on the ballot. The way they write it, you don't really know if it's for it or against it unless you do your research.
It's very confusing. I remember that with what was it? The gas tax out there.
Yes, 25 cents gas tax, which people voted in, and people didn't even realize that they were voting that 25 cent gas tax. Supposedly it was going to the roads and stuff like that, which
no, it's already been. I've seen a lot of stories about that. So, what about the residential market? I mean, how is that right now? If you can, I know you're based out of there in LA, but you do follow trends nationally. I mean, how are we looking at a country in the residential real estate market right now?
I definitely talk to agents from around the country, and here, most places, it is doing well. I mean, the inventory has been low, extremely low, because I think there's a lot of people are still afraid to put their house on the market because they're afraid to have people come into their house, But the houses that come on the market, if it is priced right, I've seen some crazy over-asking prices for these houses. And the interest rates are so good right now. They're in the twos. I mean, I had one client at one point got 2.25 for a 30-year, which is unheard of. And that's
how big of a loan was that for?
So that was conventional, conforming. So under well, conventional, I believe right now, or conforming is 725, I believe. So it was around six something was the
Okay.
loan. Yeah, a jumbo loan is higher, but that's what's really kind of fueling the market right now in real estate is these lower rates because people are afraid that a little bit later on that the rates are going to skyrocket. It did. I
So
think that's partly
is
political too.
it
Depends on.
then a buyer's market or a seller's market or is it both?
It is a seller's market
Even
right
with
now. I
the
mean, I've
interest
seen.
rates being so low, you think it's a seller's market? Because I think that would spark more
Yeah,
buying.
it definitely sparks more buying. So you have a lot of buyers
Okay,
buying
so
for one
seller's market.
property.
Okay.
If you, yeah, so if you have a good property and you price it correctly, you'll have multiple offers. And I've seen hundreds of thousands over what they were asking for. So there's a lot of happy sellers out there. But for as a buyer, though, uh, if you're having to go against other people and it brings the value up, it's really tough for them. And there's just not a lot of properties to put your offer in because it's so low
So
inventory right now.
then, okay, so the inventory is still low, even in places like California.
Oh, it's terrible. So I would say a normal market is 6 to 7 months inventory. That means it would take 6 to 7 months for you to sell everything on the
Okay.
market. We are around 2 month inventory.
Oh,
So it's pretty low.
okay.
And that also depends on price range, the city, and so forth. So you can't just generalize it. You have to kind of dive into it even more.
So
But
no, I was gonna say. So if you're looking to buy a house, okay, despite the fact that you have the historic low interest rates, it may be worth it just waiting because you could possibly, even if interest rates go up a quarter point or a half point, you could possibly save a substantial amount once, like for example, once the eviction moratoriums and the foreclosure stuff, once all those can go into effect and people are being removed from properties, it sounds like the inventory will go up, right?
I definitely think the inventory is going to go up after a certain point. But so there's a balancing act of interest rates at a certain point. The house prices are here, so it really depends. It's the timing is the hardest part. Like what prices come down, interest rates come up. It really depends on. I do think the market's going to come down some. I don't think a lot. Maybe 5 to 10%. I talked to an agent in Denver. He thinks the market's going to go down 30 to 40% there. I mean, I don't think it'll ever do that here. I'd be surprised if it went there too. But maybe 5 to 10%. But if the interest rates rise, I mean, are you saving? It's really hard. It's really hard to
see
say.
what you
I wish
save
I had a
on the
crystal ball.
principal of the house versus what you would save with the interest rates. I mean, I guess it's a risk either
Yeah,
way because you could end up maybe up to
correct.
where you're not 2.25, like you said. Maybe you get 3% 6 months from now, but
Yeah,
maybe you're able to get a house, for 100,000 cheaper or something like that than if you
correct.
bought it with the lower
Yeah.
demand.
But it's so unknown. I mean, it's really hard to say. Yes, I do think because the
Like gambling.
moratorium has been lifted. Yeah, the moratorium. So you can actually give your tenant a notice now to get out, as long as it's not COVID related. They just finally lifted that moratorium. So if your tenant is month to month and they're current on their rent, you can actually give them a notice. It's a 60-day notice here.
But if
But
it's COVID related, so
if it's COVID related, then
if they lost,
you can't get them
they
out.
lost their job or they lost their income,
Right.
then you cannot kick them out.
No, they said right, and now I believe it's going to be the end of January. But they kept changing the football
Right.
on that too. So
I
it could turn into February,
I feel
March.
for those people. Like, okay, if it's a big giant corporation, just like we were talking a few minutes ago, okay, I think corporations have some sort of duty to help people out. This is unprecedented. Have some compassion. I mean, you got to pay your bills, yeah, but work with people. I get that. But what I struggle with in my mentality, like right now, where we're living in Philadelphia, I rent here, and if I couldn't pay my rent, that would be a huge financial burden on the owner of this house.
Oh yeah, yeah,
How do they handle
and that's a
that?
problem. Is they were getting some money from the government, but
Like PPP?
I don't know if everybody got that. Yeah, and I don't know if that was forgive. If you can forgive that loan, if they get the money. So supposedly, let's just say the tenant couldn't pay. I think they could do up to 3 months. Then you could add it on to the end. But the problem is, are they going to be able to afford to give you that?
Are mortgage? Do you know if mortgage companies are working with landlords in that aspect? If it was an investment property like that?
I think the government was trying to get some of the banks to work with them, but I don't know how many were actually doing that. So I mean that's a huge thing right now, because if you own an investment property and your tenant's not paying, that's a huge financial problem that you have.
It is.
And, I don't know.
And
Yeah.
my heart
And
goes out because I know even where I was living in LA, I don't know. People may think I'm dumb for this, but I've always been kind of transient, and I like the freedom of being able to, hey, I know I'm going to be here for a year, sign a year lease. After that, maybe I'm here for 3 more years, or maybe I'm moving for a new opportunity. I personally don't like being locked down. So when I was out in LA, I was renting, I also just moved there from Mexico too. I didn't know what the
yeah, I was about
future
to ask.
what the future held. But out there, same
Yeah.
situation, if I had gotten laid off when I was in LA, couldn't pay that guy and he couldn't kick me out. I mean, there's a good chance that
That's a
house
huge
would
problem.
be getting foreclosed on once they were able to foreclose.
Well, I just had a client that bought a property with the tenant inside because the sellers could not, but the moratorium just got lifted, so he can legally get them out now. But a lot of people, they're holding off to get these people out before they put it on the market, because if you try to sell your house like that, there's going to be fewer buyers. Right. Fortunately, my client really liked this property and was willing to wait. But how many people are willing to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because his mortgage is higher than what they're paying in rent.
Oh yeah.
And what if he buys it and the tenant decides not to pay? All of a sudden, even though they're up to date, what if he decides not to pay? So there's a lot of risk.
Yes, there is.
But like I said, when this kind of starts to get a little bit better, I do think the market, there's going to be a lot more properties come on the market. But if they can keep these interest rates low and get a lot more inventory, I think the prices are going to have to start coming down, because there's going to be too many for the buyers to choose from, and then the sellers are going to have to come down in price a little bit. So it's such an unknown factor right now.
I get you.
Something's got.
So we do have to start getting wrapped up here. I guess the last question I want to ask you is, what advice do you have just generally out there for the real estate market, for people, commercial, residential, whatever it may be? What's the number one thing you think people need to have in the forefront of their mind?
Call me so I can guide you through the process. I'm serious. I've been doing this for 17 years, and I also a real estate consultant as far as trying to help people, guide you through the process. Like, I'm one of those people, like, I don't, if you would be my client, I don't care if you buy a house tomorrow, a year from now, 2 years from now, I'm going to be around for a long time. So, I'm one of the people who, I don't want to have a client upset them and never see them again. I don't run my business that way. I want to make as many people happy as I can. And if you're happy, then hopefully you refer me one of your friends. So,
And even if they're
I would.
out of state, so if they're calling you from Philly or Boston, you still just love talking
I
houses with
have.
them.
Yeah, I actually had one of my clients here. Her daughter is buying a place in Charleston, and she had her daughter call me because there was some issues, and I helped kind of guide her through some things that I think she should have done, and she was very happy. So, I mean, I know every market's a little bit different. It's not the same. Like we use escrow officers here. Some use lawyers to get through it, but a lot of real estate is similar, so I can help guide you through. And if someone has a question, I'd be happy to answer.
So you heard it
I
right here. Blayne is giving 1 hour free consulting time to anybody that reaches out. So how can they reach out to you?
Okay, well, my cell phone, 310-383-6281.
Okay.
My email is Blayne, BLAYNE, sellshomes@gmail.com.
Oh, that's pretty easy.
You can find me on Facebook, Blayne Pacelli on Facebook, Blayne Pacelli on Instagram. I do a lot of marketing. I love kind of making people laugh. If you want to follow me, and I just kind of try to teach people with the humor, because it's just I hate being stoic people, I should say. It's just
he's got some great info on Facebook. He does a lot of videos, and even when I was thinking, I mean, I've seen you do it, I think, off and on in spats over the last couple years, and they were even giving me ideas as far as like when I was thinking, how do I want this podcast to look? How do I want this to turn out? I was taking into consideration, well, how does Blayne do how you do yours, what you say in the camera, the things that you explain, and all of that info mixed with a kabillion other podcasts I came up, and watched, is basically how I came out with this format for Shark Bite Biz.
Well, thank you.
Oh, no problem.
I have a great social media guy named Paul, and also I'm a huge Gary Vee guy, which I think you said you listen to, right?
Who's that?
Gary Vee, Gary Vaynerchuk, didn't you say?
Possibly. I don't remember the name off the top of my head.
You should look into him. If not, you should definitely go on YouTube, Gary Vaynerchuk, ask Gary Vee. He has some amazing advice. So that's how I kind of got started in the videos and different things. But
we'll put all the links to the description. I'll put your email. I won't put your cell phone, but I'll put your email in the description. You've got to listen to the full episode if you want the cell phone number. You got to watch the whole episode. That email, and we'll put your Facebook or LinkedIn right there in the description so people can reach out to you. Blayne's a great person, very extremely knowledgeable, and he's got an amazing personality. Blayne, thank you so much for coming on the Shark Bite Biz.
Thank you so much for letting me come on your show.
Oh, no problem.
A really big show.
Yeah, thanks. Wow, that was a great discussion with Blayne. Really interesting take on the real estate market, about how it's booming. And I've got to say, it's quite the opposite of what I was actually expecting. Like I said during the intro, it will be very interesting to see where the market goes once the pandemic dust really starts to settle. My personal take is the commercial market, I think it's really going to open up. I think it's going to be pretty big, like we've never seen before, once businesses start downsizing their office space. Again, I mean, I could be totally wrong with that, but I already have a prospect that is like, hey, well, I guess now they're a client, but they're like, hey, we don't need an office. And they downsize pretty much just to a very, very small conference room space, and everybody's working from home. Saves them tens of thousands a year now in rent. So, we'll see how this all plays out. It will be extremely, extremely interesting. I did want to clarify from the interview, I do feel terrible for all the renters that can't pay rent as well. But I also feel, this is a business podcast, so I look from the business aspect of things. And I really feel for the mom and pops out there too. Maybe they put their life savings into what they thought was a safe investment. I mean, come on. We've never had a global pandemic like this where the whole country essentially shut down. Okay. And you have these mom and pops that'll put their life savings possibly into this one investment property or two investment properties. And because how things played out, maybe they can't pay the mortgage. Maybe they are paying the mortgage, but it's significantly hurting their household because now they don't have enough to pay, other bills or things that they need. I mean, really, if you look at it, the situation really stinks all the way around, and I feel for all sides of it. So that was a great, fun conversation with Blayne. I swear I love that dude. He is always a joy to talk to, very creative. He is more than just a real estate agent. And like he said, it doesn't matter if you're in Pennsylvania and Philly like me, if you're in New York, give him a call. He's a great person. And with the real estate agencies that he belongs to, he's connected with people all around the country. So today's topic of discussion for those watching this podcast on YouTube is, what do you think will be the future of the real estate market? I've already given you what I thought's going to happen. What do you think? Let's get that conversation started. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are 43 subscribers away from hitting 2,000 subscribers. So make sure you smash that subscribe button, share the video, and also please make sure you support the channel. Check out our Teespring merchandise store. We're going to be adding some new designs there later this year too, but right now you can find some really rocking stuff like these coffee mugs with this awesome Shark Bite Biz logo on it. Once again, I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz, and we'll see you again next episode.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.